I object.
Scratch all that. Oh, that was terrible. I apologize.
I was kicked back, taking it easy.
You're talking about stuff that is not relevant.
I'm not a camel.
I'm not a cat.
Bring the jury.
All rise. Court is now in session.
Is that correct?
On consent to that night.
I was kicked back, taking it easy.
Because he's the guy.
Scratch all that. Oh, that was terrible. I apologize.
Squirrel.
I'm not a camel.
There's a lawsuit.
What more do you need to see?
Court is now in session.
Let no dead horse go unbeaten.
Because he's the guy.
Scratch all that.
Subject
Oh, that was
matter
terrible. I
jurisdiction.
apologize.
talking about stuff that is not relevant.
Scratch all that. Oh, that was terrible. I apologize.
I'm not a camel.
Is that correct?
I'm not a cat.
You're talking about stuff that is not relevant.
I was kicked back, taking it easy.
Scratch all that. Oh, that was terrible. I apologize.
Is that correct?
What more do you need to see?
I was kicked back, taking it easy.
Is that correct?
Scratch all that. Oh, that was terrible. I apologize.
Bring the jury.
I'm not a camel.
Is
not a
that
cat.
correct?
Let no dead horse go unbeaten.
Is that correct?
I was kicked back, taking it easy.
Court is now in session.
I object.
Bring the jury.
Sir, you're charged with especially aggravated kidnapping. You're also charged with aggravated assault, and you're charged with theft of a firearm worth less than $2,500.
You're talking about stuff that is not relevant.
Hello and welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict, and boy do I have a case for you today.
Why is the dog chewing on this guy?
I think they have got the wrong guy there.
Got the wrong guy, and the dog was biting him.
He roughened him up quite a bit.
There's a lawsuit.
The next search on February 28, 2020, 7:44 p.m. How does the FBI find people? And people's misspelled P-E-O-O-P-L-E. Did the defendant find out how the FBI finds people in this case? Oh, she found out.
I just clicked off what I needed. Oh. Where is it at? Where is it at? was terrible. This is terrible right now. It's awful. It's absolutely awful. All right, this is going to be the best I've got. There it is. Boom. Okay. Welcome back. Welcome back from lunch. Turn the music down just a tiny bit so you can hear me. Welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict. Thank you so very much for being here. Hope your lunch was fabulous. Big thank you. Big shout out. Appreciation goes out to Jill Ballard, who is officially a repeat offender. She has won the internet numerous times. And as she has today, she was first in chat here with the second live stream, which we sort of did a new thing. We had the commands running before I actually came back, which was a lot of fun. I got to listen in. I think all the commands got triggered, pretty much everything, which is awesome. Welcome back. We have court live coming out of Las Vegas. Now we're finally going to be live. Big shout out once again. Thanks for Brandy Churchwell for allowing us to use her stream from yesterday because we had no other source on that. It seemed to just disappear when we needed it most, and Brandy came through in a pinch, and it was wonderful. So thank you very much, Brandy, as always. It's like we never left, says Ashley. Some of us didn't. I did. I actually went and got a little bit of lunch. I had some taquitos that Mrs. R.A. had prepared for me. So nice and warm. It was really good. Perfect timing. We are back again. Thank you for all those who tapped the like button on your way in and just leave your DNA there. We'll be collecting samples, and anyone whose DNA is not found on the button, well, let's just say you don't want to be in that group. What else do we have? Let's see. Good afternoon. So many buttons. Yes, I had a little bit of problem ending the last live stream. There were just too many buttons to push. I was falling behind. And I talked through most of the music, which left me with very little time to do this. Let's see. Yes, thank you for those that sent me links to the police chase. Appreciate that. I got that from Brandy as well. I think someone sent it to Brandy to send to me. Thank you. That was good. Am I on the right live stream? Yes, I think it is. We didn't abuse the commands. We were well behaved, says Denise. Wonderful. You always are. I can always trust you guys. It goes well with Whoppers. One thing I'll say about Whoppers. I can't believe I ate the whole thing. Wow, they seem to have more in the box when I was a kid than there was now. Let me see. I think it's just one single serving size in here. Let's see. Serving size 13 pieces. About 4.5 servings per container. That can't be right.
Is that correct?
I think I only ate like 13 pieces, although no one else has been in here since I opened the box. So maybe that's why I wasn't too hungry. Let's see. Goodman Law Firm. Look at this, yellow. It's been over 6 months and you kept your promise to wrap your arms around me and never let go. Love you, RA, and all you addicts. Hugs all around. Nicole, thank you so much. Fabulous to have you here. Thank you. I don't know why on my screen, like right here above the people hugging emoji, it says people hugging. Like right up there, it says people hugging. Like I can't. I don't know what the picture is or something. But Goodman Law Firm, thank you very much. Appreciate the hugs. Back at you. Nicole, you're one of the good ones. We are definitely going to keep you. You have to shake the box in the store. In the South, they melt together and you get one giant Whopper. These ones were called, Mrs. Ari went and got, it was movie theater treats because they were going to go do, this is it's Ticket Tuesday, but they were going to do Ticket Tuesday on Wednesday. Something that we do as part of our summer school program. And they went to the theater where they were going to go to the show. And I don't even know what show it was they'd planned on. But everybody was there, including a little company that's like a daycare after-school activity center called Carolina Heat. And the funny thing about Carolina Heat is if you abbreviate the whole thing, it just says cheat. Anyway, so they were there, and they basically took up the whole place. There wasn't any room for the kids, so they had to come home and do a home movie instead. And she brought some treats for that. All right, yay for 6 months for Nicole. Thank you very much, Ashley. Appreciate you cheering that on. I just ate one of the containers of Charleston Mini Chews. Couldn't believe how quickly I found the bottom of the box. Yeah, it's right there. It's just right there under the first layer. Okay. It's like a new thing, I guess. It doesn't work very well with my chat stuff, but we'll make it do. All right. When you said Whoppers, I thought you meant Burger King. My son thought the same thing. He's like, wait, Dad got Whoppers? I'm like, yes, I did. the malted variety. Let's see. I have not looked, and I'm not asking for this to happen, but is there a clip of me falling asleep the other day? You don't have to like create it. I'm not saying that. I'm just wondering, did it escape? Is it out in the wild? I want to watch it just for my own entertainment, but all right. Let's see. Sound is up. We've got our feed from trial. That's always good when that's working today. Okay, ready for that. SW says I need that clip. I tell you, JT, if you were over on Twitter, JT basically publicly confessed to being responsible for me falling asleep on my stream because he kept me awake. He made me watch his stream, Night Court, until late at night. And I was up way too late. I don't know. I'm not sure how it ended exactly because it was like 2:30 in the morning. I woke up. I was still sitting here in this chair with like my head bent at some awkward angle. A police chase was on the screen, and I have no idea how I got there. But I was exhausted the next day and fell asleep on the stream. Just about hit my head on the microphone like this, like boom, like it would have been like a sound like that. But instead I caught myself at the last minute and I said that was close. That's the only indicator. I don't think it was noticeable. I don't think any of you would have noticed unless I was like sitting there for like a minute and a half with my eyes closed and then hit my head. But I have, when you're falling asleep, you have no real measure of time. So it could be really awkward. Let's see. Mayla's mom says, love being part of this group. Thanks, RA, for the great content and all the laughs.
Paw Prince, rough, Paw Prince in the doghouse.
Best channel around. Thanks for all you do. Thanks, Mayla's mom. It looks like Princess Buttercup is also has found the credit card again and is sending super chats. Watch out, Rebecca. You never trained your dog how to type. That's what I'm saying. Thank you, Buttercup, for that. Thank you, Rebecca. Appreciate you both. Congratulations for your 3-month anniversary, Mayla's mom. That's wonderful. Let's see. I think that's... Did I catch everything? Oh, no. Did I? I was trying to tell this, I think, right at the end of the stream, but I am super excited about this North Carolina case. That I don't know how I found it. I think it came up on a Reddit notice. But let me read this to you just a little bit, and you tell me if this is something you would be interested if they go to trial. This is from yesterday. It's a news story from yesterday. North Carolina man was charged with murder for allegedly shooting and killing the driver of a truck who struck and killed his teenage son on Monday. Okay, that's part of it. So you think, okay, it's revenge. He's mad. It's passion, crime of passion, like in the moment. There's more to the story, okay? First of all, the truck that hit him was owned by the corrections department, so it was like a prison vehicle. The family was walking home along the road because their car ran out of gas. That's when they were struck by this vehicle, a Department of Adult Correction truck, which killed the teen. The guy stops. He hits the kid and kills him and stops. The dad pulls a gun, shoots the driver who stopped after the accident, okay? Shoots the driver, then steals that guy's truck, and he and his wife drive off, leaving the dead son and the dead corrections officer in the street. The cops identify the son on the scene and then go to the house and find the corrections vehicle there at the house and arrest him. This is just what the news story has right now. There's going to be so much more to this. That's just, Lisa, what?
Buttercup, no car ride for you today. Card thief.
Thank you, Rebecca. So this is just fresh off the press, a couple hours from me here in North Carolina, and I'm working on getting access to that one because this is bizarre. It sounds wild, and honestly, the reason why I'm interested in it is because it sounds like the court sort of case where someone would plead not guilty to the charges because of what they felt was justified. Whether or not it was, okay? I'm just saying that this sounds like a case. It's awful. It's sad. It's tragic. But yeah, it's gonna be like, whoa, thunderplumps. Yes. Kiki and Rob, you're looking for the NR command, !NR. That's going to be a lot of drama. I'm pretty sure we're going to be the only people there because it's like backwoods North Carolina. It's like central state, north of Raleigh. It's out there in the sticks a little bit. Yeah, he sort of probably shot himself in the foot for his lawsuit, for the civil lawsuit on that one. There it is.
Is not relevant.
Let's see. Why is it? My chat's updating very, very slowly. How on earth could he just leave his son? I mean, his mom. I don't know. I mean, there's got to be more to this story, but it doesn't have SA. It doesn't involve young kids. I can tell. I'm not sure. Let's see. I think it's like a teenager that was struck. Yeah, 17-year-old son.
All that. Oh, that was terrible. I apologize. Man. This is just there's got to be more to this story. Possible drugs? I don't know. Julie, wow, that's very sad. How are you, R.A.? I'm doing well, Julie. Thank you for being here. Simpson will give them double parking. Just kidding. No, they're not going to be in front of Simpson. This is in Person County, North Carolina.
You need to see.
Lisa, it would have made more sense had they tried to. I mean, first of all, shooting the driver of somebody who hit and kills your truck, it's wrong. Okay, you can't just do that. Clearly, it was an accident, or it sounds like it was an accident, and he stopped to help, and then you shoot the guy. That's murder. Okay, it's not like the guy stopped and like turned the car around, tried to get the other two, and he shot in self-defense. But what's that? A soundbite of Elaine, Amber Heard's lawyer. I don't have any soundbites of her. Anyway, we'll follow this one a little bit. Looks like the defendant's name is Woods. Specifically, let's see. Chad Woods is the defendant. Julie says, "I'd love to watch that court case." We'll see what happens. We have to see what they plead. It might take a long time to go to court. Have you seen the one where the stepson stabbed his stepdad and he's starting school back? It's wild too. Haven't seen that one. Molly Cuddle, hello, welcome. Good to have you here. Just saw the case of Valerie Porter and Judge Alex. Any police chase when the missus asks how people can be so dumb, it's always the same response: drugs. Yeah, people make stupid decisions. And I tell you, dependency on drugs or addiction, which is powerful. I mean, you think of this: how could somebody make such a stupid decision? But at the same time, unless you've been there, it's hard to explain how much that addiction drives you and causes you to do things and make bad decisions. But it's good. I'm trying from Elaine. That would be a fun one. We've got a couple of requests for audio bites just from this morning already. Let's see. We needed one from like that. We need the "oh no" from the Elmo not working. The despair. It's like, oh no, the Elmo's not working. We need the I have no idea from the defense expert who was just on the stand. That was Moggs, right? And we need Brandy saying they need to get it together. So those three I have to work on. Hey, Tag, welcome. Let's see, somebody's calling in. Not sure who this is. Let's see.
Call from.
Ooh,
to accept, press 1.
Hey, this is Scott. Wow. Wrong number, maybe. I tried. All right. Brandy's goat scream. I'm not sure if that would be the best one. She probably won't like me if I use that as a command. I mean, she would be nice. She would say yes for sure, but I want to be respectful. Let's see. It made me jump. It made me jump a ton. Okay, court is going to begin here in about 15 minutes. This is going to be day 4. We're kicking off day 4. A few witnesses sound like police. From what we've heard in the little chatter, the hot mic chatter at the end of the previous live stream, the state is probably going to be done with their presentation about Friday. I think Ivan's calling in. 1 second. Ivan, my friend, how are you doing?
Hey. How are we?
We're doing well. I won't ask for an update.
No. I'll just say this: God is real.
Yes.
God is real.
You found religion in the last 24 hours. Congratulations.
It found me. Okay. Who knew a commode could spread the good word? Okay.
Well, they don't call it a throne for nothing. All right.
Right. Yeah, the porcelain gods. Right. You're bowing like my old man used to say. Oh, he's bowing to the porcelain gods again.
Yep. That ghost pepper challenge is a real deal. What's up? What's happening?
Well, I've just been curious on everybody's opinion of Mr. Mike here, because I've kind of thrown it out in the chats a few times. You know, I've seen people like a little bit like feeling bad for him, or he was set up. But this is my crossroads. We all loved Mr. Morrison, right? Like we all wish Mr. Morrison was here and present and able to tell his story. Yeah, but if we believe Mr. Morrison, and I think I did. Did you?
He seemed like he didn't have a reason to lie.
Right. Like he didn't ask to be brought in there. Like he was just minding his own business, living his life with his, promiscuous mother-in-law and just doing his thing. And so
promiscuous doesn't seem like a big enough word to cover the scope, the breadth and scope of the promiscuity.
Yeah, everybody is kind of like everybody's like forever. That's a lot, it's a long time. Forever is a long time. A lot, or everybody's a lot. So, but my point is here is that his story is identical to what sort of happened to Mike. So, if that's true, if we believe Morrison, we have to believe that Mike went there to kill her, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, we can't. Both can't, you know what I mean? Like, if we believe Morrison, then we have to. So this is why, like, my empathy for Mike can only go so far, right? Because I do believe Morrison, but if I have to believe Morrison, I have to believe Mike went there to kill her. So at that point,
I think the state believes that as well. The state, I mean, they're not saying that the defendant killed Mike, or they're not saying that the defendant killed his wife. They're saying that the defendant arranged for Mike to kill his wife so that he could then kill Mike in the self-defense type thing, and then it would all be the evidence would stack up and show that it's Mike, and I think it does. I think the evidence shows that Mike was the one responsible.
So the state is saying that Mike did kill the wife.
Yes, but the way this works is if Tommy arranged for Mike to kill his wife, then Tommy can be charged just like if he had been the one who do it. So the charge is the same.
Yeah. It's like being the getaway driver. Like if you are a getaway driver and your buddies go in and rob the 7-Eleven and it goes bad and somebody dies, guess what? You got a murder charge.
Yeah. And that's basically what we have here now with Tommy. So he's facing 2 charges of murder, one for Mike and one for his wife.
Right.
But I agree. I think the state's right that Mike looks like he's the one who did it.
Well, and that's why I just have to hold back on like the empathy, because people are like, "Oh, he was set up." I have no doubt he was set up, but like the only reason he was able to be set up is because he agreed to something terrible, right? Like, so how far can our empathy really travel? I guess is my question.
Yeah.
So. In any event, I just kind of wanted to
I will say, it does sound like, as far as the empathy goes, it does sound like Mike may not have been playing with the full deck, that he was possibly manipulated a little bit, as many people apparently were around Tommy, that Tommy saw him and said, this is somebody that I can twist and mold into what I want him to be.
He's a mark. Yeah, he's a mark.
So
a patsy.
He did still make a bad choice. I mean, most people know that killing someone is wrong. I mean, even on a basic level.
And that's why it drove me crazy when they threw out Morrison's testimony. Oh, he didn't know details. Well, why the heck would he know details? He turned down the job. This guy accepted the job, and what happened to him was the very thing that Morrison was worried was going to happen to him. Yeah. He said, what, I'm going to go in there, shoot this guy's wife, and walk out of there? No way. Like, he called it to a T.
Yep.
So...
Yeah, it's sad, but we're going to have to basically look at this whole trial. The jury is going to have to look at this whole trial without knowing all the stuff that came before. And so it has to stand on its own. All the evidence has to be enough to convict here. We think, at least the state thinks they can do this, but it is it's difficult. You got to look at this from the viewpoint of the jury, where they don't know these prior things. We'll see how
Well,
it goes.
and as far as not knowing, I've always wanted to know how much Sharon knew about his past, marriage, history. Like, how much? Like, do we ever find that out? Like, how much she knew? How many did she know about? Like, what did she think? Like, do we ever find that out or no?
I don't know, because he was Tommy was really open to the fact that he had a girlfriend. I'm not sure if he was also open to the fact that he had 5 previous wives. It's so some things you share, some things are just the skeletons of the closet we don't talk about.
All right, as they say, there are levels to this, and there are levels to everything, and I assume transparency is high on that list. So, all right, brother.
All right,
I'll let you fly.
Sounds good. All right, we'll see you.
All right, love you guys.
See you. Bye.
Yep.
All right, great questions from Ivan there. Ashley, Brandy's trying to fix her sounds. Is she using Lumia Stream for those? I think we're getting sound from the courtroom. Come to speak. Talk. Let's see. Let me see if we're getting this. I think we are. I think we got a hot mic, so we should have video here shortly. Tell her that I use 12% or less, Ashley, on my volume if she's using Lumia Stream to trigger them. 12% or less. I think she had hers at 30%, which is, the volume just seems really loud. I don't know why. If it's Lumia Stream she's using to trigger him. Both chats are fantastic. I love that we have so much crossover. I go over there and it feels like home because I see familiar faces and kind people all over the place. It's a different feel. Brandy obviously has her own feel and her own spin, but I love it as well. So I appreciate it. I know I'm not for everybody. There's some people who prefer to watch with Brandy. That is great. I love that. And I know some people prefer to watch with me, and that is also great. The internet's big enough for all of us. So thank you very much. All right. Okay, so I'll go back and tell her Luminous. No, Lumia Stream. I think that's the software she uses. It's the software I use to trigger all my commands. So if you do an exclamation point something, that's the trigger that plays the software, and then the software plays the sound. In Lumia Stream, each sound I set the volume level to 12% of maximum, and that's where my sounds come in. And then I also have the added ability to raise and lower them using the soundboard, which I don't think she has the soundboard. So it's a little trickier. So you have a television on you and a phone on Brandy. That's the best way to do it. Thank you, Jimmy. Okay, we have video as we're getting ready for court to begin. It should begin in about 8 minutes. Is it zebra time before court goes live? Yeah, we're close. We're really close. I missed the zebra reference. Or zebra, for those of you that are over in England. I wonder if Deidre knew, but couldn't bring it up. Yeah, we'd have to go back and look at some of the pretrial rulings, the limine stuff, and see what was ruled out. Let me see if I can, well, it's quiet. Let me see if I can tune out some of this hiss that we're getting on the channel today. Get closer. There's a lot of static in there. It's a whole bunch of static. So turn 5 on. I have to take out like a whole section of the. I can't do it. It just takes out so much of the sound. It's such a wide hiss. Mostly left ear. Well, I can fix that. Can make it all right ear. Does that work? See, maybe once they go live, that sound will get a little bit better. Oh, that's the hanging zebra. Sorry. Yes, there's the zebra comment. Thank you very much, Ann. It's the emotional support zebra. Let's see. Molly Cuddle says, one of the loveliest seals of the state I've seen in court so far. Simple, gorgeous artwork. It's just a two-tone, just the blue and the white. It is simple. I think it pays a little homage to the beginning of the state, which was really, I think, mining was pretty much the main industry that drove the settlement in Nevada. It sure wasn't the climate. It was a brutal climate for those early days for people who were trying to set up there. Hyman says, only Recovery Addict and Brandy could make a 5-time ex-felon convict feel welcome in a room full of people. Ivan, you are welcome here all the time. You know that. I appreciate you. I love you, man. Thank you very much for being here. What is going on? We're just waiting for court to begin. We've got a little bit of hot mic here, but in Las Vegas, Nevada, which is where this trial is being held, they're just getting started for the day, even though we've all had lunch, or most of us had, those of us on the East Coast. Sorry, I'm just including you like you're here with me. There's gold in them there hills. There is some gold in Nevada. There's a lot more silver in Nevada. Nevada is got tons and tons of silver mines, but tons of gold as well. A little bit of history. I've done a little bit of metal detecting in Nevada, not a ton, mostly because it requires you to carry so much water with you. If you want to talk about mines a little bit, Utah has a huge mine called the Kennecott Copper Pit. It's an open pit mine where they just are digging a hole, and it's actually visible from space. It's such a big hole. I think it's the largest open face pit in the world. They keep having all sorts of little tremors and earthquakes and mudslides, and they have to rebuild. But they have massive, the biggest mining trucks you've ever seen in your life are there. She's using a sound deck or something like that. I might have to give her a call, maybe off stream, and see if I can help her through that. But this mining pit, it's a copper pit, is what they call it. But they make, I believe, more money off the other metals they get out of the mine than they do out of copper. And they get tons of gold. I believe it was an armored truck loaded with gold every week, and that's refined bars, 5/9 pure gold. That would ship out of there every week or every other week. I could tell you stories that involve some of that gold and some of it that was smuggled out, but I'm not sure what the statute of limitations is for the people involved. I was not directly. I had a guy that tried to sell me some of the gold he had stolen from that mine. I said no. Let's see. Why the water carrying when metal detecting? It's for drinking, Molly. The sun cooks you, and you're trying to be dehydrated into a little prune by the sun while you're out working in the desert, all the while trying to dodge rattlesnakes and scorpions and anything else, coyotes or anything else that wants to eat you. So it's just everything's trying to kill you when you're out metal detecting in Nevada, whether it's nature or I guess it's all nature. That mine is a sight to see. It's huge. It's huge. There used to be an observation place you could drive up and look down into it. I'm not sure if it's still open. I remember driving up there and getting a flat tire at the top. That was no good. Okay, Little Miss, I think they found more casings. Only one casing was found in the house. All the rest of the casings were in the garage. And Mike was shot, I believe, multiple times, but the angles and everything, it's not going to make sense with the story that we've heard. I love it when people say statute of limitations instead of statute. It's only terrifying if you're in like Nevada in the desert, and you've driven for 4 hours to get to the spot you're detecting, and the first sound you hear as you step out of the car is a rattlesnake and a coyote howling in the distance. And you're worried about falling into a mine shaft that's covered with a thin layer of dirt or a little old board. Yeah, it's dangerous out there. Scotland would be a great place to do some metal detecting. That would be awesome. No desire to visit Nevada. It's pretty. I mean, it's not all desolate. Definitely around the casinos and the golf courses where they have the money to invest, they've made it blossom. It's beautiful. There's greenery and everything, even in the heat. And it's, I guess, the casino in its own way is beautiful on a not on a macro scale. I guess on a macro, not on a micro scale. The closer you get, the dirtier and the dingy and the sleazy side of Nevada after the sun goes down is beautiful. But if you're just looking at the lights and it's fun to do that. A lot of platinum and a 5G tower. How are you going to get it all, though? Would your metal detector pick up a copperhead snake? Only if it had eaten a penny. I've run into let's see. I think they're called orange diamondbacks. I ran into 2 orange diamondback snakes in one day in an area where the scientists and the natural, the fish and game and all those people, they say they don't live. But I've found them there, 2 of them. Probably about 200 feet apart. Sun was climbing Mount Whitney in California, highest point in the lower 48. Just got down safely. That's awesome, Cass. But it has some stories and some pictures from that. That is beautiful. Come on over. Let's do some detecting in Scotland. I think the judge is coming in. Is that her? This is a 3-week trial is what they've slated for. It might go a little less than that. But the state should be done possibly by Friday. They should be done with their witnesses. Then I'll go over to defense. John Denver at Red Rocks, that would be amazing. I'm ready.
Do we need to deal with this firearms thing before this witness starts? The first witness.
What's the firearms thing?
Okay. All right, let's go on the record and see 250966, State Battle versus Thomas Randolph. May the record reflect that Mr. Randolph is present with his attorneys, deputy district attorneys on behalf of the state. We are outside the presence of our jury. So it was brought to my attention that there was an issue regarding the next witness that we needed to resolve before the witness hits the stand.
So, yes, Your Honor, the state currently has marked as proposed exhibit 323 some notes that the firearms expert Randall Stone took, sort of detailing his ejection pattern analysis when he fired the 9mm gun. I provided to defense counsel both the redacted and unredacted version.
Can I see
I have 2 copies, Your Honor.
Okay.
So I informed defense counsel, I can't remember what day now, that I intended to introduce the exhibit with Randall Stone, but I was going to black out the bottom part because it's hearsay of a conversation that he has between him, the firearms analyst, and Detective O'Kelly.
Okay.
The state's position is defense counsel can certainly inquire of Detective O'Kelly if this conversation took place, And if Detective O'Kelly denies it, that would make the statement a prior inconsistent statement and admissible. But otherwise, Randall Stone's notes about what Detective O'Kelly said is hearsay.
So it kind of depends. Just
Detective
for
Kelly is one they had
completeness of
some
the record, we were given these
lot of arguments
documents at 6:30 p.m. Monday, at the conclusion of the trial day. The state's position is that only the conversation he has with Detective O'Kelly is hearsay. If we're actually applying hearsay, well, the whole document's hearsay. It's an out-of-court statement. It's an assertion that they're trying to introduce, certainly for the truth of the matter asserted. It includes follow-up notes of the conversation between the witness and Dean O'Kelly. If the document comes in, the entire document needs to come in, and there is an exception for the portion at the bottom of the document. Specifically, it is Dean O'Kelly's then existing state of mind, plan, motive, intent about what he wanted to happen with the remainder of that
prosecution is wearing
testing
their,
related to the ballistics
tribute
in this
outfit
case.
to
Also,
Harry
it's
Potter.
a regular recorded activity at Metro. Mr. Stone keeps those notes every time he does a case like this, maintains it in his file. That's how the state has it now, and that's how we got a copy of it. If the state's position is, look, it's going to come in anyway if he denies it, well, the statement's going to come in because Dean O'Kelly's later going to testify that he in fact had this conversation, or he's going to deny it. It's going to come in anyway. So it's inevitable that it comes in under any analysis. The whole document's hearsay. We don't have any objection to it coming in. We want the whole document to come in. The portion that the state redacted is admissible under not one but two separate exceptions to hearsay law.
We want the hearsay.
So I don't think it qualifies as a report. These are notes that he took that are detailing his sort of like what he was doing with the ejection pattern, like his measurements and stuff like that. It's not a police report, but it is a documentation of the testing he did. The lab routinely has conversations with detectives, and those are all hearsay. As far as the state of mind, I don't think it does tell Detective O'Kelly's state of mind.
I'm just getting right
Certainly
audio
he's a
right now
witness
too.
who's
We're going to
gonna
get this
testify
fixed.
in this case, so they're free to ask him on cross-examination what it was. But Randall Stone's recitation of a phone conversation isn't illustrating Detective O'Kelly's state of mind, or I would also say I'm not sure how that's relevant at this point, the firearms interpretation of Detective O'Kelly's state of mind.
Okay, so if these notes are accurate, if Detective O'Kelly said, as long as I could state in my report that the casings were ejected rearward, I'm sorry, I pronounced that terribly, and to the right, that would be sufficient. Does Randall Stone then go forward and do something in response to this?
He doesn't do something in response to that. And that statement by Dean O'Kelly falls squarely within 51-105. It is a statement of the declarant, Dean O'Kelly, then existing state of mind, plan, motive, design, which is explicitly not admissible under the hearsay. He says, that's good enough for me. You don't need to go do these things, and that's why Randall Stone doesn't.
That's why he doesn't do that.
He wanted to do additional testing. O'Kelly tells him, nope, good enough.
Well, then I think that what he's permitted to ask is, did you have a conversation with Detective O'Kelly about doing additional testing? And he either says yes or no based on that conversation. What did you do? I completed the testing. And then he can ask Detective O'Kelly about what he told him. I mean,
but here's the issue, Ms. Wagner. Either it's coming in today or it's coming in when Detective O'Kelly gets here, I guess is my question. Because if Randall Stone is asked, did you want to desire to do other things? Either it's coming in today or it's coming in when Detective O'Kelly gets here, I guess is my question. Because if Randall Stone is asked, did you want to desire to do other things that based on representations made by Detective O'Kelly, you didn't? If he says no, he can be impeached with these notes. If he says yes, then when Detective O'Kelly gets here, Detective O'Kelly can be asked, did you tell Randall Stones that as long as you say the bullet ejected rearward, he didn't have to do anything? If Detective O'Kelly says no, he can be impeached with these notes, and if he says yes, the notes still come in.
Well, they wouldn't come in then, because if he says yes...
But the statement is still in, so what's the difference in it coming in on this document, or Randall Stone agreeing that this is what he wrote, or Detective O'Kelly agreeing that this is what he said?
Because if Detective O'Kelly says, yes, I had that conversation, it's not a prior inconsistent statement. It's
right,
just
he would be what I'm saying is he would be admitting to exactly what's in these notes. So the jury would still have the same information that they have, whether we give it to them today or whether we give, and either way it's coming, because if Detective Kelly says yes, then you're right, this doesn't come in, but they could literally say, did you say the following? And Detective Kelly says yes. So this jury knows Detective O'Kelly said exactly what's written.
Right, but it would.
Detective O'Kelly says no, Detective O'Kelly can be impeached with these notes. So either way, this statement is before the jury, so what is the issue?
Because it shouldn't come in the note form at this point in the proceedings. It would only be if Detective O'Kelly testifies, yes, I had that conversation, then it comes in as testimony. It doesn't come in the form of Randall Stone's notes.
Then the entirety of it should have come in. Here's how this plays out. And I agree with Your Honor. I can impeach either one of them regardless of what answer comes out.
Right.
But it's admissible under a separate exception that has nothing to do with the prior inconsistent statement. It comes in for that purpose. But what the state wants to do is introduce half a document, and then they want us to say, this is how the question answering would go. Did you conduct testing? Yes. Did you desire to conduct additional testing? Yes. Did you have a conversation with Dean O'Kelly about whether or not you should? Yes. Did he instruct you not to? Yes. As a result of that, did you not conduct further testing? Yes. Did you document that in your notes? Yes. And now there's a blacked out spot on the notes. It makes zero sense.
Well, that's, I guess, what I'm struggling with, because if he says that, then what is the purpose of blacking it out on the notes? That's the part I don't understand. Like, what is the purpose of blacking it out if it is inevitable that this statement by Dean O'Kelly that caused him to do something, to not do something, if this is accurate and everybody can, it's still coming in front of this jury. So what is the prejudice to the state in allowing this document in its entirety rather than giving the jury a document where something has been blacked out?
The state's, I'll substitute out, I'm not that worried about it, I'll substitute out the document and have the one with the notes, but the position of the state is it does not become admissible until Detective O'Kelly testifies.
But it could become admissible if he denies that he wrote it.
He would have to deny the conversation.
Right, I don't know what he's going to say, but if he denies, let's just say hypothetically, this next witness says, no, I've never had a conversation with Dean O'Kelly, this would become admissible at that point.
That's correct. I doubt he's going to say I didn't write those notes.
So I disagree that it only becomes admissible when Dean O'Kelly testifies.
But then that would be only if he denied it.
He's not. But I don't know what he's going to say, but I just don't see the harm to you. This statement is coming for the jury, whether it's today or whether it's when Dean O'Kelly gets there. The jury is going to know that Dean O'Kelly said this.
Okay, well then the state's request is we'll substitute out, I have the, you have it actually,
Okay,
and if we could just substitute that with number 323.
The unredacted copy will be admitted to the jury if the proper foundation is laid, because he has to lay the foundation that these are his notes and that he wrote them. All right, any other issues?
Trust me, this document's coming in.
I just need to, if I could have the court's indulgence.
Okay, these are your copies, and I appreciate those, because I had it, but I needed to sit back.
No problem. Could you mark this one as 323? Oh, yeah.
All right, anything else outside the presence?
Can I just have 1 second? Yes. I forgot one photo I need, and I just need to find it real quick.
That judge raising her voice there, she was pretty excited. Looks like she's what's that teen? What was that on her mug? Did anyone catch that? Jenny says, I actually understood her this time. It's easier when you can see her face. It's easier to see that. Elmo is in the way still, but hoping the courtroom camera could be moved a tiny bit. What about the redacted part? It's coming in, and the state just conceded. They said, we're going to unredact the document and submit it with all the details.
You have it? Okay. I found it. I'm good, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay.
I found it.
Wait a minute.
Do we want to make a stipulation on the record?
Oh, hold on. What?
A stipulation on the record about the exhibits?
We can do it. I mean...
Right. So we'll clear it in front of the jury. Yeah, we'll do it in front of the jury, but we're good.
Move it all in.
All right.
Saving time. Bring the jury in, bring the evidence in.
Everything's coming in.
Everything's coming in.
All rise for the jury.
Here comes the jury. They open the door, and the jury is like right there. Ta-da! Documentus findus was the spell she used. I don't have a magic wand, but if I hold my gavel right, it looks like one. Documentus findus.
Please be seated. Your Honor, the jury is all present and accounted for. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We are back on the record in C-250966, State of Nevada versus Thomas Randolph. May the record reflect Mr. Randolph is present with his attorneys, deputy district attorneys on behalf of the state. Do both parties stipulate to the presence of our jury?
Yes.
Okay, do you guys have a stipulation between the parties?
So I believe the parties have stipulated, Your Honor, to the admissibility of all the physical evidence that has been brought into the courtroom, as well as all photographs that have been marked as well.
What are the numbers?
I believe it 1 through, I want to say the last exhibit is 326. So it's going to include, for example, some CDs with some data on it and things of that nature.
Okay, is 326 the last one? Okay. All right, so 1 and 2 were already in. So let's do 3.
Chandler's looking cute today. Like
is
that
admitted
outfit.
pursuant to stipulation. And then 105 to 117 was already in. So then we'll go 118 to 122 is admitted pursuant to stipulation. 136 to 167. 169 to 213. 215 to 284, 289 to 304, 310, 318 to 323, and 326.
Lizzie, we're going to hear more about the document in a minute.
So stipulated.
Okay,
So
those are all in
stipulated.
pursuant to stipulation.
We're going to hear more about the document in a bit from one of the next witnesses. That low thigh holster is pretty impressive. It looks cool.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please be seated. Please state and spell your name for the record, please.
Randall Stone, Randall. Last name is Stone.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, how were you employed back in 2008?
I worked in the forensic lab for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department.
What was your job in the forensic lab?
I worked in the firearms unit where we analyze guns and cartridge cases.
I think it's
and
this
bullets
guy's notes.
for identification purposes.
How long did you work for Metro as a firearms and ballistic analyst?
About 8 years. I retired in 2014, so I've been retired for 9 years now.
Okay. In order to do that job, did you have to undergo training?
Yes, I started. I've worked in the lab for 29 and a half years total. I have a bachelor's degree in criminalistics. I was hired by the laboratory shortly after I graduated back in 1984. I worked in various units of the laboratory until about 2005, and then I was transferred into the firearms unit when I was accepted into the Bureau of Alcohol, Firearms, Tobacco, and Explosives, or ATF for short, their National Firearms Academy.
And as a firearms analyst, can you give the members of the jury sort of an overview of what you do?
Yes, we receive items of evidence from crime scenes, including guns, bullets, cartridge cases. We test the firearms to make sure they function properly. Then we collect test fires from these guns and try to determine if any of the evidence, cartridge cases or bullets, may have been fired from those guns.
And over the course of your career working as a firearms analyst, do you have any kind of estimation of how many cases you might have worked on?
Over a few hundred easily.
Okay. In order to work in Metro's lab, was there sort of a quality, like a certification test or something to make sure that you were doing your work accurately?
The way I was trained was I spent 6 months at the ATF Academy in Maryland, where I worked in the laboratory training with the ATF analysts, and it's a lot of classroom and practical testing. Then I came back to my laboratory and was sent items to exam from the ATF laboratory that were sent back and tested. I also at the same time was trained by the senior analysts in our laboratory during that period, and I had to pass a number of proficiency tests, which are fake cases where they know the answer and I have to analyze and get the right answer. Once I completed all of that, then I was released for casework.
Okay. Can you describe how many times, just approximately, you've testified as an expert in the area of firearms and tool marks analysis?
Over 25 times easily in Clark County District Court.
Okay. Can you explain for the members of the jury the components of a cartridge and sort of define cartridge, bullet versus case?
Sure. I always find it easier for the jurors to understand if we're all using the same terminology.
You better have brought a demo,
so
like a large
if you buy a box of
demo
ammo
one.
and you take a piece of evidence out of that, or a piece of ammunition out of there, a lot of people call that a bullet, and that's not actually true. We call that a cartridge, and it consists of 4 distinct things in there. You have the case, which is usually a brass or steel case. Inside that case, there's a specific amount of gunpowder, smokeless powder, and seated in the end of the case, the opened end of the case, is the bullet. On the back side of the cartridge is a primer. That's a high explosive, so that when the firing pin hits it, it ignites the smokeless powder in the case and sends the bullet down the barrel at a high velocity. So, depending on what kind of gun you're talking about, there's two main types of popular guns out there. We have semi-automatic pistols and revolvers. So if you place one of these cartridges in a revolver, you put it in the cylinder, which has usually about 6 chambers in it, so you can put a cartridge in each chamber. When you pull the trigger and the bullet goes, the cartridge case stays in the gun. They have to be manually removed by the shooter. If you want to shoot again, you pull the trigger again and the cylinder turns to the next available cartridge and you can fire again. With a semi-automatic pistol, you usually put the cartridges in a magazine, which fits up usually into the grip of the gun. So to load the gun, you need to pull the slide back, and that cocks the trigger. Release the slide, and it strips the first cartridge off of the magazine, puts it in the chamber. Then the gun's ready to fire. As soon as you fire, once again, it hits the primer, and the bullet heads down range. The difference is there's a couple other things that happen with a semi-automatic pistol. Because of the pressure going forward, there's equal pressure going backwards, and it pulls the slide back and actually jerks the spent cartridge case out of the ejection port, and it lands somewhere near the gun. Then the slide, because it's unspring-loaded, will go back, take the next cartridge off the top of the magazine, and then that's ready to fire. So we usually deal with unfired cartridges, fired cartridge cases, and fired bullets.
And that, like the unfired cartridge case is essentially 1 round of ammunition?
Yes, that's ready to use.
Okay, the part that comes out the barrel we can call a bullet?
That's the bullet.
And the part that encased the bullet before it was fired is the case?
Cartridge case, yes.
The cartridge case, okay. Now in this case, this particular case, did you examine 3 firearms?
Yes, I did.
And what was the first type of examination that you did with the guns?
The first thing we do with the guns is just a function and safety test. So we look at all the parts of the gun, make sure there hasn't been any alteration to it to make it unsafe, make sure that all the parts are there, and just make sure that it's going to be safe to test fire.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Who picked his nose? GSD mom, I was not watching. The witness?
Nope.
Or the defendant?
I am showing you what's been admitted by stipulation, states 290, 291, and 292. I'd like to have you first look at 292, and can you tell me if you recognize that as one of the guns you examined?
Yes, I recognize it because it has my personnel number and initials and the date I analyzed it on the seals of the box.
And with the court's permission, can he hold it up to the jury? Is that okay? Yeah.
I leave that to Adam.
Okay. I don't want to break any rules. Can you tell the members of the jury what is that gun? What kind of gun is that, and what do you see when you look at that gun?
This is a Bakil. I think it's a IJ70 model number. It's a Russian gun. It also could be Chinese. It's hard to tell on some of these. They were imported from Russia, and they also were imported from China. So it's a semi-automatic pistol. It's a 9mm Makarov caliber. That just means the size and shape of the cartridge that fits in it, and it's also the diameter of the barrel.
Okay. And are you able to hold it up and kind of point out where a fired case would come out of the gun?
Is that like a priority mailer box it's
pistols,
into?
They have an ejection port right here on the right side, about the middle of the slide. So when this slide comes back, there's a little hook that's holding on to the
He's
cartridge
arresting
case.
the evidence on the microphone. That's why we're hearing this noise.
And when you tested this gun, it was functional?
Yes, it was.
Do you test anything like trigger pull or that type of thing?
Yes, that's part of our safety test, is just to test the trigger pulls to see if they're within specs. We really don't have a lot of specs on this gun. It had a pretty high trigger pull, but I'm not sure what a normal trigger pull is for this gun.
And what is a trigger pull?
That is the amount of weight or the amount of force it takes using your finger to pull the trigger and make it fire.
And the reason why you wouldn't have a lot of specs on this type of gun is because of where it's manufactured?
Yes, that's true.
Okay. And that's either Russia or I think you said China?
China, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to have you look now at what's been admitted as 292. And what gun is that? And if you could just hold it up for the jury.
Ready. All right, this is a Smith & Wesson 38 caliber revolver. It's 38 special, actually, is what the caliber is called. And it is a revolver.
And I know you kind of touched on this, but can you explain to the members of the jury, like how you look at that and you know it's a revolver? What are the characteristics that you're looking at?
The major characteristic is this cylinder right here. It has 6 different chambers where you can put cartridges in. And like I said before, each time you pull the trigger, the cylinder turns to a new cartridge. So once you've shot 6 shots, you're going to have to manually remove them and put some more ammunition in to be able to shoot it again.
And that gun you tested was functional?
Yes, it was.
This witness is a gun expert. He's not a microphone expert.
Wesson, so it's U.S. made?
Yes.
Was it within the specs that you would expect?
Yes, the trigger pull for Smith & Wesson revolvers is usually 3 for single action, 9 for double action, and this fit right in there.
Okay, and what is single action versus double action?
Well, on these revolvers, there's a hammer, which is this part here, and that's the part you see people cock. So if you go ahead and pull that hammer back, it'll sit on a little ledge and stay there, and that cocks the trigger. If you pull the trigger, it'll fire, and that's what we call a single action firing. Because it's already pulled back a little bit, it's much easier to pull the trigger. But with this gun, you can also have the hammer all the way down and pull the trigger, and it will move the hammer back and then release it forward.
It's double
and that's
action.
why the trigger pulls so much higher on the double action, because you're actually pulling the hammer back while you're pulling the trigger.
Now, just to be clear, if you fire a round from a revolver, the cartridge case stays within that cylinder?
That's correct. It has to be manually removed.
Okay. And then the last one, sorry, this is States 290. Did you examine that?
Camera
yes, I
just
did. It
informs.
also has my initials on it.
Okay, and what gun is that? Sorry.
This is another Smith & Wesson.
It's a 22.
But this one is a 22 revolver. So it's a real small cartridge and a real light bullet.
Okay. In addition to examining the guns for functionality, were you also given like ballistic evidence in order to do a comparison of fired cartridge cases to the guns?
Yes, I did.
And can you explain to the members of the jury how it is that you're able to make that type of comparison?
Well, like I said before, we do test fire the guns. So take them, we have a range actually in our lab, and I do 3 shots downrange and collect the cartridge cases. Obviously the bullets are gone, but that's mostly just to see if the gun's accurate or make sure it's shooting straight. Then we also have a water tank inside that range. So I'll do 3 more shots into the water tank. And what that does is it slows down the bullet without damaging it, so that they can be recovered and compared to evidence bullets. We also collect the cartridge cases from that for comparisons. So then we take these fired cartridge cases, we call them test fires, and we compare them with the evidence cartridge cases that were submitted.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Might get some ASMR here, guys, so get ready.
Show you a couple envelopes of evidence. This is what's been admitted as States 300, and this
They're already
is States
pre-opened.
296 and 293.
Okay.
And if you want to go back,
She's getting a little grabby with those guns.
so do you recognize those items of evidence?
Yes, once again, they have my personnel number and initials and the date I analyzed them.
Okay. And what is contained in those packages?
The first package, which was 9618, was 1 bullet.
Okay. And are you able to tell where that bullet was recovered from?
It says 1704 Pinto Lane, which I know is the coroner's office.
Okay, so that bullet appears, at least to you, to be from autopsy?
That was what I would assume, yes.
Okay. And then you have 5 other cartridge cases, correct?
Correct.
And those list an address that you probably haven't been to.
No, I just assumed that was the crime scene.
Okay. Now, those 5 cartridge cases, which are contained in 293 and 296, did you compare those to what's been admitted as 292, the 9mm?
Yes, I did compare the cartridge cases with this 9mm Makarov.
Okay, and with regard to those 5 cartridge cases, were you able to make a conclusion regarding whether those 5 cartridge cases were fired by this 9mm?
Yes, I concluded through my examination that all 5 cartridge cases were fired by the Makarov pistol.
Okay, and did you make a determination with the bullet that was recovered at autopsy?
Yes, I did.
What was your conclusion there?
That bullet was fired from the 38, or from the 38 special revolver.
Okay, and were there 2 bullets? You had 2 different bullets from autopsy, is that right?
Actually, if I remember right, it was a jacket.
A jacket? Huh?
Oh, this is the one that was with the Makarov.
Okay, so to be clear, can you flip that back?
Let me see
over
which
so-
one this is.
So I can just...
9618. Let me just check my notes to be sure.
If he screwed up the evidence and they're in the wrong bags, this would be bad.
Yeah, 961811 was ID'd to the Makarov.
Okay, so let me just so our record is clear, the bullet that was in States 300, right?
Correct.
Which was recovered from autopsy.
Correct.
Came from this 9mm.
Yes.
Okay. Could you put that back?
Certainly.
He just about blew the whole case right there.
So, I next want to focus on a cartridge case that I think you had from the 38 Special.
Correct.
And what were your conclusions regarding that cartridge case?
After examination, I concluded that cartridge case was fired by the 38 Special revolver.
Okay. And just for the record, I think that's in States 299.
What would happen? They would have to say, because of the previous trial, this evidence was used previously.
Yes, it was packaged 925510, item 15.
So in States Exhibit 291, which is a 38 Special revolver, there was 1 cartridge case that you examined.
Correct.
And it came from this gun.
Yes, it did.
Now, With regard to this 22, did you have any expended cartridge cases to compare for that one?
No, I did not.
With regard to the 38 special and showing you states 294,
Okay.
does that item of evidence appear to be from autopsy?
Yes.
And what determination did you make with regard to that? I guess it's a bullet fragment, is that fair?
Right. In this package, there was a jacket off of a bullet. These bullets have like copper jackets on them, and then lead on the inside for weight. And they had come apart. This had come apart when it had hit whatever it hit, and so I had some fragments of lead and a copper jacket in there.
And were you able, with those fragments, to make any type of comparison between that and the 38 special?
Not with the lead fragments because there's no rifling on them. There's no marks from the bullet. But the jacket itself, I was able to identify as being fired from the 38 special.
Okay. So from autopsy, we have one bullet that's fired from the 9mm and one bullet that's fired from the 38?
Correct.
And with regard to this 22, there were no cartridge cases or bullets or anything for you to do comparison?
No, there was not.
Now, were you asked by Detective O'Kelly to do what's called an ejection pattern analysis?
Yes, I was.
And what is that?
As I said before, with the semi-automatic pistols, they eject the cartridge cases out, so they fly out. And normally, most guns that I've ever seen, because the ejection port's on the right side, and the slide's coming backwards when this is happening, they eject to the right and to the rear. But Detective O'Kelly wanted me to confirm this with this gun. So I went into the shooting range, went towards the front of the range, and then I had an assistant in the back of the, on the back of behind me, and I shot 6 shots, and he calculated where they were hitting and then where they came to rest. And the results of that, it is kind of a small shooting range. It's only like 7.5 feet wide, about 40 feet long. So they came out to the rear and to the right and then hit the wall on the other side. So they were traveling about 6 feet right and about 4 feet back and hitting the wall about 3 or 4 feet off the floor. And then eventually bouncing off that wall and coming to rest.
And sir, I'm showing you what's been admitted as states 323. Do you recognize that document?
Yes, that's a diagram and my notes from that ejection pattern test.
Okay, and at the bottom, you have some notes about a conversation that you had between yourself and Detective O'Kelly?
Yes.
And what did those notes talk about?
I told him I did the ejection test inside the shooting range and that they were hitting the wall. I said I could get a more accurate determination of where they would have landed if we did it outside and tried to simulate the ground. Because the thing with these, when they're ejecting, if they hit a concrete, they're going to go further. If they hit a wall, they're going to go less. So I asked him if it was necessary to do that, and he said no, it was not. He said he just wanted to make sure that they came out backwards and to the right.
Okay, and that's what you kind of predicted they would do based on your knowledge of the weapon?
Yes, about 99% of the semi-automatic pistols that I've shot all come out to the right and rear.
To the back. And the place where you did your ejection pattern testing was indoors?
Correct.
And did you say it was like a hallway?
It's like a big metal container.
Okay.
And so it's all steel. And it's wider than a hallway. It's about 7.5 feet wide.
Okay.
But it still isn't wide enough that the bullets weren't ricocheting off the wall.
Okay.
I mean, the cartridge cases weren't ricocheting off the wall.
And you were saying to Detective O'Kelly, look, if I go outside, you could probably even measure the distance.
They'd go further.
Yeah, they would before they hit a wall.
Before they hit the wall.
Okay.
He said it wasn't really necessary.
Okay. Do you know where this crime took place?
Pardon?
Do you know where the crime scene is in this case?
No, I have no idea.
Okay. And so when you had that conversation with him, you didn't know whether the crime took place inside or outside or anything like that?
No, I didn't know that actually until I had pre-trial with you.
Okay. So let's put on the overhead what's been admitted as states 323. Can you see that up there?
Yes.
Okay, so this is your notes about the hallway, is that
Correct.
fair?
As you can see, it's I've marked 7.5 feet.
Thank you.
That's as wide as the range is.
Oh, right across here?
Right across there.
Okay, and then I see an X where you kind of indicate that's the shooter position?
Correct. That's the X up in the top left.
And then what is that other X, like the bigger one?
The other X is where the cartridge cases were hitting the wall, and I noted that they were hitting at this position 3 to 5 feet from the floor.
Hey, sir, I think there's a mouse up there.
Oh, okay.
Oh, thank you.
So the jury can see
There we go.
Okay.
So right here
Uh-huh.
was where they were hitting the wall, and it was 3 to 5 feet above the floor. So they're coming from this shooting position over here where I'm shooting.
Okay.
They're crossing about 5 feet back
Okay.
and about 7 feet across to hit the wall at this point, and then they're ricocheting, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 that landed back here.
So the X that's higher up in the box, and that's marked as the shooter position, I think this is probably obvious, but what direction are you firing?
Downrange.
So up on the...
No,
up
just
the-
straight downrange. Up, yeah, just, they were going down into the trap.
Okay.
Right here. There's
And
a
the-
bullet trap at the back.
All right, and then the cases are those little X's that we see on the lower part of the...
Correct.
rectangle?
That's where they finally came to rest after bouncing off the wall.
Okay, and is it based on that you confirmed that it went to the right and behind?
Correct, but I do have to interject here that I was firing in a normal shooting position. I was standing with my arms extended in front of me with the gun upright, so the magazine well's facing down. Obviously, if you turn the gun one way or another, it's going to eject differently. For example, if you flipped it this way, here's the right side
That's
of the
the
gun.
gangster kill
I would
shot
expect
mode.
it to come back and almost hit you in the forehead, which things like that have happened and they hurt. They come out hot. If you turn it the other way, facing down, it's going to come back towards your feet. So when we do an ejection pattern, we're assuming that they were shooting in a standard firing position.
And that firing position would be a standard firing position, obviously, for to have some consistency for comparison purposes?
Correct.
And so you did like a standard position for firing when you were doing this analysis?
That's correct.
And they went backward, or to the right and backwards?
That's correct.
And it looks like on the diagram, to varying distances, but it also looks like they hit that wall as well?
Yes.
And that's why you made that notation?
Correct.
Okay. Now,
that said to me that if the wall wasn't there, they would have went a lot further.
a lot further.
Yeah.
But still kind of in that direction.
Correct. They're still going backwards and to the right.
Okay. And the conversation that we just spoke of, where you spoke to Detective O'Kelly, that's noted in your notes on your diagram as well?
Correct. That's this little paragraph right here.
Okay. And that's when you suggested, hey, look, I could do this outdoors and actually measure how far they would fly outdoors.
Right.
But he said that wasn't necessary.
Right, and we've done that before. We've actually gone outdoors, but it was a shooting that occurred outdoors, and they were landing in grass, so we could simulate that.
Okay. Now, I believe you analyzed bullets that were collected at the crime scene as well. Is that fair?
That's correct.
I'm showing you what's been admitted.
So that was the page, those notes on the bottom. That's what the
297.
pre-court little discussion was about this morning. Getting that little bottom little blip included.
Okay.
And with regard to those bullets, did you determine what firearm, if any, they were consistent with?
Yes, the ones that are contained in this, what is it, 295?
Yep.
They were fired from the Makarov.
The 9mm?
9mm.
Okay. And then what about the bullets from 297?
All right.
Seriously. Lined paperwork.
Yes, this is inside this package. There's 2 bullets and some metal fragments. The 2 bullets, items 10 and 11, I did identify to the Makarov 9mm.
And so all of the bullets in these two, 295 and 297, you determined to be fired by that 9mm Makarov?
That's correct.
Okay. And with regard to the fragment, were you able to do anything with that?
No, it's just a lead fragment. It doesn't have any rifling on it, so it doesn't have any identification information. So overall, there was 5 cartridge cases fired by the Makarov, and there were 5 bullets recovered from the Makarov.
Okay. When you're doing your analysis on the cartridge cases, when you do like a fired round and then you compare it to the actually impounded evidence, is that like comparison done microscopically?
Yes, with cartridge cases and bullets, we use what's called a compound or a stereo microscope. It's 2 compound microscopes that are put together with an optical bridge. So you can put one item on one stage, another item on the other stage, and you can look at them and line them up right beside each other with a cursor right down the middle.
And sir, I'm showing you what's been marked as, admitted, as states 318 through 322. I'd ask you to look through these photographs and just let me know when we're done. When you're done, I should say.
Oh, we're done. We're done. And sleepy time is coming early today.
All right.
Do those appear to be photographs that you took in association with your analysis of all of the evidence in this case?
Yes, those pictures are representative of the marks that was seen. We actually call them tool marks. The gun in this case is actually a tool. And we look at these marks under the stereoscope from the test-fired cartridge cases to the evidence cartridge cases and try to line up these marks to make sure they're individual marks and they're consistent. Once we get sufficient quality and quantity of marks, a seasoned examiner can make a determination that they were fired from the same gun.
Okay, and I think you said these are representative, meaning you took many more photos than this.
There was many more photos, yes. We just keep a representative example of what we saw, for which comes in handy on a case like this, because I don't remember doing this case. It's just a representative of what I saw.
Okay. And
I don't
I'm gonna
remember
put on the
doing this
overhead
case.
States 318.
They're going to capitalize on that.
A little bit. And can you tell the members of the jury, like, what are you looking at in that type of photograph?
So,
this
this is the stereoscope that I was talking about. This line here differentiates what's on the left side of the stage and what's on the right side of the stage. So over here on the left, it says T2 there, so that's the test fire. And over on the right is the evidence cartridge case. And what we're looking for is, see all these lines, they call them furrows and ridges, and we're looking at their spatial relationship and the size and shape. They're not all going to match perfectly, but if we get enough of a pattern, then that would be an identification.
Okay. And this is States 319. What are we looking at there?
This is actually the breech face marks. So on these guns, when the cartridge is in there, the back of the cartridge is up against what we call a breech face. It's a real strong piece of steel because there's a lot of pressure there. So when you fire the gun, it's pressed up against the breech face. So any marks that are on the breech face from manufacturing or from wear and tear, they will transfer over to the softer material. So as you can see on this picture, we got lots of lines that are all the same, all lined up, and that's a really good breech face identification.
Okay, and it's these sorts of comparisons you're making in order to make the determinations that you discussed earlier about, I determined that those cartridge cases came from the 9mm or something like that.
That's correct. And we look at a number of different areas on the cartridge cases. For example, with the 9mm Makarov, it had a mark called an ejection port mark, and that's one of those pictures too. That is when the cartridge case is slung out of the ejection port, it hits the slide, and it repeats the same way almost every time. So you can compare a test cartridge case to an evidence cartridge case, and those ejection marks match up really nice.
So I'm going to put on the overhead now. I'm going to do it in order. This is States 320. What are we looking at?
That's another breech face identification.
And this is 321.
It's a little blurry, but there's the ejection port mark.
Okay.
off of the Makarov, and you can see this is a really good representation of you get the same marks time after time as it hits the ejection port.
And lastly, I'm going to put on the overhead states 322.
Okay, that's the analysis of one of the bullets. I'm not sure which one, but what happens when the bullet goes down let me go back a little bit when it comes to bullets. Bullets, to identify them, there's two things we look at. We look at class characteristics and individual characteristics. The class characteristic on a bullet is generated by the barrel. All these barrels are rifled. What they do, the manufacturer, is they cut grooves in the barrel in a spiral. They can either go right, they can go left. They use a number of different grooves. Some are 5 right, some are 4 left. For example, the Makarov, that barrel was cut 4 left, so it had 4 grooves to the left. The Smith & Wesson 38 Special is 5 right, so it has 5 grooves, and it goes to the right. So if you looked at one bullet from each of those guns in a second, you could say they weren't fired from the same gun because they're completely different marks on the bullets. And the reason they do that rifling in there is to spin the bullet, which makes its trajectory more stable. So it doesn't really matter whether they cut it right or left. Manufacturers do all kinds of different things, but it really helps us to eliminate them immediately. The other thing we do, if they are the same, say I had 2 4 lefts, I'd measure the grooves and the area between the grooves. And because sometimes they use wider cutters, other manufacturers use thinner cutters. And if those measurements match up, then the class characteristics are consistent. I can move on to an identification like this, where I'm looking at the marks that were left by the barrel on the bullet and matching the test fires to the evidence bullets.
So even though guns are manufactured, like you had 2 Smith & Wesson 38 Specials, same manufacturer, because of like uniqueness in the manufacturing process for each particular gun and barrel and all the kind of mechanisms within the firearm, those are what are imparting the unique characteristics on
Correct.
fired ammunition.
When they make these barrels, a lot of times they make a longer barrel and cut it into pieces. And they'll run a cutter down it, like I said, spiraling the cutter. Then they'll cut them into pieces.
Why is he banging on the
There's
table?
been research done over the years where you can take those individual pieces they cut off, follow them through the manufacturing process, fire them, and you can still tell the difference between those barrels. Because when that cutter's going through there, it's changing. It's usually a carbide cutter, so it's harder than the steel. And it's changing, it's getting duller, it's getting nicks on it, and as it goes through there, it changes. And even if you have 4 barrels that are cut from one piece of steel, you can tell the difference when you're firing at the end.
So lastly, sir, I'm going to put on the overhead what's been admitted as states 214. And zoom in a little bit. Now, you never went to this crime scene, is that?
No, I did not.
Okay. So if someone were standing here in this general area and shooting this direction, meaning towards that number 3 there,
Correct.
where would you expect the cartridge cases to go?
Based on...
You can use the mouse when you explain.
Yes, based on the ejection patterns from the Makarov that I did, if you're firing from here and you're firing this way towards this subject, the cartridge cases are going to end up back and to the right, like they did in the test that I did in the laboratory. If the shooter's standing in a typical shooter's position and is holding the gun upright, I would expect them to go backwards and probably hit the wall here or hit somewhere in here and maybe end up back here somewhere. It depends on what they hit here, but I would expect them to be back here to the right and to the rear.
Has he never seen the
Thank
walkthrough
you.
video?
I will pass the witness.
He's going to get torn apart on this one.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I am well. Retirement treating you well?
Yes, it is.
Excellent. You started at Metro when?
1984.
And you retired at Metro when?
2014.
Okay, and you're back here today testifying about a case that happened in 2008 when you were at Metro, right?
Correct.
Okay. I'm assuming when you were at Metro, you would come testify in court cases related to forensic work you did on those cases,
Yes, thousands of times.
right? Yeah, and you would come to court as a Metro employee, you'd get paid your Metro salary.
That's correct.
I'm assuming now that you're retired, you probably don't get that same Metro salary, right?
No, I don't.
Okay. And you're actually...
I do get the pension, though.
And thankful that you do. It's helping you in retirement, right? You're here today, though, testifying as an expert witness called by the state in order to prove their case. You understand?
That's correct.
And they're actually paying you to do that.
Yes, they are.
And they're paying you an hourly expert rate that you dictate.
Yes.
How much?
How much are you making per hour now?
$150 an hour from the time I walk into the courtroom to the time I'm done.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear about that.
Yes.
That's
All right.
very little.
You said a moment ago that
Very
you
little.
don't actually remember working on this case.
No, I do not.
Okay. You worked on so many cases over so many years that it's impossible for you to remember all of them.
That's
right?
correct.
Because of that, you know that all the work that you have done on this case is kept in a file at the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department.
That's correct.
And each individual case you work on is attributed a event number, right?
That's correct.
And at least how they did it back in 2008 is the event number would be the date first, right?
Correct.
So this case is 08/05/08. That tells you that it occurred on May 8th of 2008,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And it's number 3131, the 3,131st chronological case of that day, right?
That's correct. Dispatch assigns an event number
Okay,
starting at 1 minute after midnight.
right. So everything that you did is kept in a file at Metro. Those photographs that Ms. Weckerly showed you a moment ago, those are kept in that file, right?
Right. I have a copy of that file.
And in fact, the work you do, you're actually jotting down notes so that you can memorialize it in time while it's fresh in your mind, right?
That's correct.
So you can be accurate when you come to court and testify.
That's correct.
All right. The work that you did on this case essentially involves 3 separate firearms, right?
That's correct.
And a number of implements that are there after the firing of those firearms.
That's correct.
Those include shell cases, right?
Yes.
Okay. And just to be clear, case, the proper terminology is shell case or shell case.
We call it cartridge case
Yeah.
or fired cartridge case?
The terminology casings is actually incorrect, right?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, a casing is like what goes around sauce.
Yes.
Right. A lot of people make that mistake, though.
Correct.
And if you could just do me a huge favor, I know you know what's coming and you're giving me the answer, but sometimes you're talking before I finish the question.
Okay.
I just want to make sure we have a real quick record, and if I talk over you, just point it out and I'll try to correct it, okay?
Okay.
All right. So when you do work, correct terminology is important, right?
That's correct.
And when you do work, accuracy is important, right?
Yes, it is.
In fact, most of the work you do is kind of in a laboratory controlled-ish environment, right?
Yes, I could say that.
So when you go test fire, for instance, it's not like shooting out on a range, right?
Well, it's just a small, it's 40 feet long by 7.5 feet range right there in the lab.
In a controlled environment.
Yes.
You control the way you hold the gun.
Correct.
You control the directionality of the gun.
Correct.
You control the environment in which you shoot the gun.
Correct.
When you shoot the gun, the ground is the same, right?
Yes.
The walls are the same.
Yes.
The airflow is the same.
Yes.
Any of those things independently could impact the work that you do. Agreed?
Yes.
And because it's important that your work be as accurate as possible, you control all those things, right?
Correct.
Okay. In this particular case, you mentioned 3 separate firearms. I'm going to put them up on the screen here. What's in evidence is States 169. That's that semi-automatic 9mm Makarov you described earlier, right?
Yes, it is.
I just want to clarify a small point related to this firearm. The manufacturer is called Baikal, right?
Correct.
Okay. Are you aware that's a lake in Russia?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Not really relevant to your consideration, but that's where that name came from.
Yes.
Okay. Jury's probably heard of a 9mm firearm. It's a very common firearm caliber, right?
Correct.
And the 9mm that most of us probably hear about is like a 9mm Luger or a 9x19, right?
Correct.
That's not what this firearm is.
No, this actually is 1 millimeter shorter
Yeah.
than a 9x19.
It's a 9x18, right?
Correct.
It's a little bit shorter bullet, correct?
A little bit shorter cartridge case.
Okay. A little bit wider diameter.
Just a touch.
Yep. And
they call these like nominal 38s, which means they're around 0.35 inches in diameter, but they're not all exactly that.
Okay. This particular firearm, not nearly as common as a 9x19 9mm we hear about.
In Russia, it was very popular, but not in the United States, no.
Okay. The fact that this gun is manufactured out of the United States, nothing untoward or illegal about that, right?
Not at the time.
Right. There's a lot of firearms that, in fact, are widely popular in the U.S. that are manufactured elsewhere.
That's correct.
You ever heard of Glock?
Yes.
Biggest firearms manufacturer as it relates to handguns in the world, right?
Correct.
Including in the U.S., correct?
Correct.
And they're actually made in Austria for the most part, right?
For the most part, yeah.
Springfield Armory, they have a headquarters in Geneseo, Illinois. You knew that, right?
Actually, I've been there.
Yeah, I actually grew up there.
Did you?
Believe that. They're actually manufactured in Croatia, though, aren't they?
Yes.
And they're imported to the U.S.
Correct.
The fact that this is a Russian caliber and a Russian firearm, nothing unusual about that or important for your consideration?
No, it is not.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that point. Unlike this particular firearm, a revolver with the cylinder doesn't eject a shell casing, right?
No, it does not. It has to be manually ejected.
So when I pull the trigger on a revolver, the cylinder turns, right?
Correct.
That's how the next round comes up,
Yep.
right? The cartridge case stays within the firearm.
That's correct.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's in evidence as states 176. You recognize that to be a revolver.
This is pertinent because they're
This
talking
is the
about where the shell
cylinder you're
casing lined up.
referring to?
Correct.
That's what turns and then brings the next bullet forward. Right?
Correct.
It's going to disprove or help prove the defendant's story of how the events occurred.
When you fire a handgun, whether it be a semi-automatic or a revolver, there are identifying characteristics that are left behind on the cartridge case when the firing pin strikes it, correct?
Correct. Well, in the whole process, not just the firing pin.
Right. I'm going to show you what's in evidence of states 179. Those appear to you to be rimfire cartridges, right?
Yes, they are.
They don't contain the same type of primer as a center fire cartridge.
Yes, the primer material is inside the case.
Right. And I'll give you an example of that in just a second. But as you look at this photograph, you can tell that all of those cartridges are intact, right?
That's true. There would be some kind of a firing pin mark, and on these 22s, it's around the edge, around the outside here. You'd have
Like
some
a
kind
rim?
of firing pin
Like a
mark,
rim
Oh,
and I don't
fire?
see any.
Which is where the terminology rim fire as opposed to center fire comes from.
That's correct.
In other words, you can look at states 179 and you can see that there are no shots fired from that gun at that time.
Doesn't appear to from this photo now.
Okay. I'm going to show you another photograph. This is a different revolver. It's in evidence of states 173. Do you see that one?
Yes, I do.
Same cylinder?
Yes.
And you recognize that as one of the firearms you just showed the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, correct?
Yes, this is a 38 special.
Okay. 38 Special is a bigger, more powerful cartridge than the smaller 22 that I just showed you, right?
Yes, quite a bit so.
Okay.
This is the gun that killed Sharon.
And if I zoom in on, for the record, stage 175, that shows that cylinder flipped open, right?
Yes.
Do you see the little circles within each one of those individual cartridges?
Yes, those are the primers.
That's where the primer's housed in the cartridge itself.
Yes, it is.
One of those is not like the others. You agree with that?
One of them has a firing pin impression.
Okay. It looks to me, as I look at that particular photograph, it's like at the 11 o'clock.
Yeah, it's this one right here.
So you can look at that and you know that it's been struck by a hammer and firing pin, right?
Yes.
That would lead you to believe in a functioning firearm, a bullet came out of it.
I would expect the other side to not have a bullet in it, yes.
Okay.
If it functioned properly.
And in fact, as Ms. Weckerly discussed with you, you actually did a comparison related to the 38 in this case, right?
Yes, they did.
And you were able to make a match, bullet to case, right?
Bullet to the gun, cartridge case to the gun.
Right, so that gun fired a specific cartridge case and a specific bullet.
Correct.
The rounds in that particular firearm are rounds that are called plus P rounds, right?
Yes.
Power.
And plus P means something to you as a firearms and tool market.
It means plus powder.
In other words, there's more pressure and more powder utilized in those rounds, right?
Yes, it's a little more robust round with that extra powder in it.
Robust meaning that it fires with more velocity.
A little better velocity, yes.
Okay. In other words, a plus P round is more powerful than a standard 38 round.
Yes, because it has more powder.
And a 38 round is significantly more powerful than a 22 round.
Yes.
Okay. You were never actually at the crime scene, right?
No, we don't generally go out to crime scenes. We have CSI that takes care of all that.
That would be very unusual for you to go to a scene to look at evidence, right?
I never did the entire 8 years I was in firearms unit.
Okay. The way you get evidence is someone at a scene decides what's important to them in their investigation, right?
It's decided between the detectives and the crime scene investigators.
Yep. And those are the people at the scene, correct?
Correct.
So someone at the scene decides what's important to them in their investigation, right?
Yes.
And they impound that item, right?
Correct.
And they seal it with red tape, correct?
Yeah, it's not always red, but yeah.
Most of the time.
Most of the time it's red.
Yep. And they put their initials and P number over it.
Correct.
And then someone makes a request of you. Typically it's a detective, right?
Yes.
And the detective tells you what's important to his investigation or her investigation, right?
It doesn't really tell me what's important to him. It just tells me what items he wants analyzed and what he wants us to compare things to. So it's just a request form he makes that please analyze these firearms comparing to these bullets and cartridge cases.
Okay. You'd agree with me if it's not important to him or relevant to his or her investigation, probably not going to put it on that request form.
No, he won't.
Okay. And in fact, they decide what goes on the request form. That's my point.
They decide what we analyze in the laboratory.
So you get that form either in a digital or hard copy format, right?
Right.
You look at it, yes?
Yes.
You look at what's been impounded in evidence.
Correct.
You take it out.
Yes.
And you do your work, right?
Yes.
After you've made your conclusions, you repackage the material, right?
Correct.
And you utilize blue tape in the lab, right?
Yeah, usually.
And then it goes back into evidence.
Yep.
And that's what you did in this case.
Yes, I did.
And the end result is, like, you can tell us, hey, these rounds were fired from this 9mm Makarov pistol, right?
Correct. There was 5 cartridge cases and 5 bullets that I identified to the Makarov.
You'd agree with me that when you shoot a semi-automatic handgun, every time you shoot it, if it functions, there's going to be a case ejected.
If it functions properly.
If it functions properly, there will be a case ejected.
Correct.
And if you fire it and there's 5 bullets that come out, theoretically, you would expect 5 shell cases.
Not necessarily, because sometimes they're very hard to find. And a lot of times they don't find all the cartridge cases.
Why?
They roll under things. They get lost, especially if it's an outdoor shooting. They get lost in the weeds or the grass.
This is a trap. This is a trap.
So not always do they match up that way, where you have 5 bullets and 5 cartridge cases. And a lot of the bullets are hard to recover. Some of them go way off where you don't even know where they are. So it's kind of unique to have 5 bullets recovered and 5 cartridge cases, really.
So this is my point. When you shoot a bullet out of a semi-automatic handgun, it's going real fast.
It's going about, in this gun, about 1,000 feet per second.
You'd agree that's pretty fast?
That's pretty fast.
And when bullets hit things, they do weird things sometimes, right?
Yes, they do.
Unlike in your laboratory static environment when you shoot into a water tank, bullets come out in different conditions, right?
Yes.
And bullets go different places.
Yes.
Bullets can hit something or someone and wind up in a completely different direction.
That's correct.
That happens a lot in the real world, right?
Yes, it does.
You'd agree with me, it's really difficult to determine from where a bullet ends up where it started.
That's really true, because they do ricochet off of things. They're going at a high velocity, so if they hit something at an angle, they're going to go a completely different direction.
Okay, so oftentimes in the real world, when a bullet's fired, could go anywhere or do anything.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but they are unpredictable. That's what I would say.
Okay, I'd agree with you. Shell cases, likewise, when they're ejected in the real world, unlike in a laboratory environment, can go a lot of different places.
Yes, and that's why I prefaced the standard shooting position, because we don't really know how the person was holding that gun.
Yep.
We're just saying, when I'm in a standard shooting position with the gun level, they go out and to the right.
It's giving him his lines.
Okay. And I'm going to walk you through a couple of examples. But you'd agree with me that shell cases can wind up a lot of different places at a dynamic, active shooting scene.
Yes, they can. Or they could be, kicked or moved by someone.
Okay. If I'm standing here and I'm shooting a gun at that wall in a normal shooting position, in other words, 2 hands on the firearm, and I'm not moving and the firearm's upright, you would expect in a typical semi-automatic firearm for the shell case to eject back and to the right.
Yes, I would.
And that's because most guns are fired or created to be fired by right-handed people.
That's correct.
So if I'm shooting right-handed, we wouldn't want it to eject to the left because it might hit me in the face.
Correct.
But if I was a right-hander, it would go that way.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Likewise.
That's why they put the ejection port on the right side.
Likewise, if I turn and I'm shooting this direction, you would expect the bullet to go that, or the shell case to go that way, correct?
To the back and to the right.
Right. So changing my body position changes where the case ejects to.
That's correct.
Okay. Shell cases, when they eject, can hit an object, right?
Yes, they can.
That object can cause them to ricochet, correct?
Yes.
They can bounce and move.
Yes.
Right? They're ejected with enough velocity that they would go approximately in this firearm about 6 feet to the right.
I would say more than that based on my analysis of it, because it was still hitting the wall 3 to 5 feet, 5 feet back.
So in your
if the wall wasn't there, it would have went quite a bit further right.
In your controlled environment, the shell case, your estimate is that it would actually go further than 6 feet.
If there was no wall there, yes.
7 or 8 feet.
I have no idea.
Okay, but
I don't know what they hit the wall at 3 to 5 feet, but I don't know what trajectory, if they were going down or they were going up when they hit the wall. So they could have gone further. They definitely would have went further if the wall wasn't there.
Those are all important things for you to know to determine the placement of a shooting, right?
That's correct.
Okay. If you saw a shooting on video in slow motion, you could dictate, hey, there's that shell casing, it struck this wall, hit the flooring here, was kicked by this person, and it wound up over there, right?
Yes.
In a situation where you don't have that ability, it's really hard to say where a shell casing ends up in relation to a shooting and why, right?
It's definitely environmentally sensitive, what kind of objects are around you when you're shooting, what it's going to maybe ricochet off, and that's why on my ejection pattern test, I prefaced it with, these are, like you say, controlled conditions in a laboratory.
Okay. The flooring surface makes a big difference as to where the shell cases wind up, right?
That's correct.
A hard floor might cause a bigger bounce.
Correct.
Further travel.
Correct.
A soft surface, like if I'm shooting in a beach in a stationary position, the shell cases might just land on the sand and stay there.
Yes, they would.
On a hard floor, they wouldn't do that.
No, they would bounce.
And sometimes they can bounce quite a ways.
Yes, they could.
Okay. A barrier or an obstruction to an ejected shell case can make a big difference, right?
Yes.
I want to give you an example. If I'm shooting at this doorway, and I'm shooting 1 foot inside the door from a stationary position, both arms forward, gun upright,
yes,
you would expect the case to eject back over in the area of this desk.
That's correct.
If I step 1 foot forward and my arm is now in the doorway, you would expect it would actually hit the surface, right?
Yes, it would.
And it might bounce that way.
It probably would bounce right across the shooter's face.
It might bounce into this side.
It might.
It might bounce again.
Yeah, there's no way to tell.
If there's something else on the other side of that door, it might hit that object.
Correct?
And it could bounce, right?
Yes, it could.
If I shoot a shell case out of a gun and it lands right here, and I walk by and I kick it, it could go anywhere.
Yes, it can.
If say 2 people walk by, that would increase the statistical odds that someone kicks it.
Yes.
And for every person that walks that same route, it increases those statistical odds, right?
Yes.
If 30 people are walking back and forth, that shell case may very well end up a different location than where it started, right?
That's definitely possible.
Give you another example. If instead of shooting in the doorway, I'm now standing in the same doorway, but I'm 6 inches further forward, and now my hand's on the opposite side of that doorway when I pull the trigger, where do you expect the shell case to go?
It depends on what's on the other side of the door. Are we assuming there's a right turn with a wall?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, if you're clear of the door jamb, then it's probably going to come back behind you again.
Okay. If I'm clear of this door jamb, my hand is 6 to 8 inches past it. I'm a foot inside of it.
If you're right up against the door jamb like that, it's going to hit the door jamb.
I'm past it, though.
Oh, I can't see from here.
Yep. Say I'm past it. I can't go past that door, but say I am.
If you're past it, then it would hit whatever's on that side of the door.
On that side of the door, right?
That's correct.
And if it comes back, it might hit that wall, right?
Yep.
If there was a refrigerator right there, it might hit that refrigerator.
That's correct.
Shell case would bounce off of those objects, right?
Yes, they would.
And then if, let's say, all the people in this courtroom walked through that doorway, they could kick it somewhere, right?
That's definitely possible.
Yep. You have no idea, based on those scenarios, what shell case wound up where from where it originated, right?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Under those scenarios, those various different minute changes can completely change where a shell case ends up, right?
Yes, it can.
Okay. And you'd agree with me that unless you know those variables, you can't estimate where a shell case would wind up in those situations.
I can't estimate at a crime scene that I've never been to where they might end up. But with the controlled circumstances that I did my ejection test in, that shell casings go out to the rear and to the right.
Okay. If I'm shooting, say, 2 or 3 strides from that doorway, and I'm shooting in this direction, could the shell case go right through that door if it was open?
If it was open, yes. If it was the right trajectory, it certainly could.
This is explaining how the shell
That
case
wouldn't
is
surprise you at all, would it?
No.
Those would be good things for you to know in order to determine the location of a shell case in relation to where the trigger was pulled, right?
To definitely say that this is where the shell cases are going to land, yeah, you need more information. All I did was say when I shot this in a standard position, they ended up here. I'm not saying how the shell casings at the scene got to where they are. If they were kicked, I have no idea.
Okay. Didn't you suggest there was something else you could do in order to conduct further testing about where a shell case would wind up when fired from this 9mm Makarov?
Here's the
Yes,
argument.
I could have went out to an outdoor range where we'd have more room and there's no wall for the cartridge cases to hit and get a more accurate of how far they would travel. And I asked Detective O'Kelly if he wanted me to do that, and he said, no, don't bother.
By my count, you've said about 3 times now that you were never at that scene, right?
That's correct.
You have an understanding that Detective O'Kelly was at that scene, right?
Oh, I'm sure he was.
And you have an understanding that he's the one that requested forensic testing of all the ballistics evidence recovered from that scene, correct?
Yes, his name were on both of the requests I received.
And in fact, once you received them, you continued to communicate with him about your findings, right?
Just in reference to the ejection pattern testing, if you wanted me to do it outdoors.
Okay. Remember you told us at the inception of this cross-examination that you kept notes so you could remember exactly what was said at the time it was said?
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's in evidence of States 323. These are your notes, right?
Yes, they are.
And the state showed you this portion up here, correct?
Yes.
And they showed you the X for the shooter's position. For the record, that's in the middle left of the page with an X with a line that says shooter position.
That's correct.
Okay. And then you've got some distance measurement estimates there, right?
Yes, that's just the distance to where they hit the wall.
Okay. And you'd agree with me there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are kind of clumped together right here, right?
Right.
And then there's one over here all by itself, right?
Yep.
And that's in a controlled environment, right?
That's correct.
With the gun vertical, yes?
Correct.
With a stable shooting position, yes?
Yes, that's correct.
With both hands on the gun.
Yes.
You didn't do any testing or examinations with the gun canted or cocked to the side?
No,
right?
I did not.
That would drastically change things, right?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Do you have any idea whether or not Thomas Randolph has any kind of physical ailments that prevent his arm from straightening?
I have no idea.
You wouldn't know that, right?
I do not.
Okay. Detective might ask things like that, right?
He could have.
Okay. I'm going to read to you what's at the bottom of 323, and you tell me if I got this correctly. Called Detective O'Kelly and asked if we needed a more accurate ejection pattern, informing him that I would need to go to the outdoor range. Did I read that right?
Yes.
You told us before in your cross-examination that accuracy is extremely important to what you do, right?
That's correct.
You want to be as accurate as possible, right?
Yes.
Because you know that your testing might wind up in, I don't know, a murder trial, right?
Correct.
No.
He said, as long as I could state in my report that the casing were ejected rearward and to the right, that would be sufficient, right?
Correct.
Detective O'Kelly told you, according to your notes, that you memorialized at that time, as long as you'll write in your report that it ejects to the back and to the right, that's good enough for me, right?
That's correct.
Nothing further, Judge.
So if you had done that outdoor analysis of the ejection pattern, what would that have told you?
If it was outdoors and there was no wall for them to bounce off of, that would tell me how much further they would have went to the right and to the rear.
Okay, so what it would basically tell you is sort of a measurement of how far a bullet would, or sorry, a case would go if unimpeded by a wall.
That's correct.
Okay, it wouldn't tell you anything else other than that measurement?
That's correct.
And so if our scene was inside and in a hallway, it wouldn't tell us a whole lot more about our scene.
No, it would not.
Okay, so it would probably be meaningless to do that outdoor shooting to see how far it might fly in a field unobstructed. That may be kind of meaningless in terms of an indoor scene.
Yes, and that was the impression I got from talking to Detective O'Kelly, that it wasn't necessary.
Okay, because it has no applicability if your scene's inside.
Right.
Okay. So you were asked about if flooring is a factor in, how a case moves or bounces, that type of thing.
Correct. If it's like carpet, it's going to pretty much stop right where it comes to rest. But in the laboratory range, they rolled and bounced quite a bit.
Okay.
It's a hard floor.
It's a hard floor, and they still all ended up to the right and behind.
Yes.
Okay. And regarding variables of how many people maybe went in a scene and how many people walked through it, those are things that you can't recreate in a lab setting to see how that might affect the ejection pattern analysis. Is that fair?
Right. I don't have that information.
Okay. And even if you did, no one's going to remember like, well, I took 3 strides, or you have no way of knowing if witnesses or first responders can recreate their movements exactly.
Correct.
And so is the ejection pattern analysis, it isn't telling us to the millimeter or the centimeter where a cartridge case might land. It's a general pattern.
Right. It's a consistency of that pattern.
Okay. Now, I think you talked on direct examination about when a bullet is fired out of a gun, it's spinning to maintain stability.
Correct.
And that, obviously, with this 9mm, it's spinning really fast and moving really fast.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so it stays in a straight line until it hits something. Is that fair?
Until it hits something or it loses velocity and starts to drop because of gravity.
But for it to lose velocity, it would have to travel pretty far, right?
Yes,
Okay.
a few hundred yards probably.
Prior to hitting an object and in a shorter range, does it say stable and straight?
Yes.
And I think I heard this on cross-examination. That .38 Special is a far more powerful weapon than that .22 revolver?
Yes, it is. It has a much larger bullet and a lot more. The .38 Special Plus P has a lot of smokeless gunpowder in it.
Okay. So it would be, I guess, a more deadly weapon or cause more damage?
Not necessarily. I've talked to a lot of coroners, and .22s usually do a lot more damage because they're lead bullets and they break apart and they go all over in the body, where if you got a lot of velocity and you have, say, a jacketed bullet that doesn't have a hollow point in it, it'll go right through a person, and that'll cause less damage to the person.
And the one that you examined between the revolvers, the 22 there was only unfired cartridges, right?
Correct. I think there was 6 unfired cartridges and a magazine submitted with it.
And the 38, there was 1 fired.
Yes.
Okay. Court's indulgence. Thank you, sir.
2 minutes, if that.
Here we go.
I just listened to the state ask you questions, and I listened to your answers, and I want to make sure I got this one right.
Okay.
You were asked the question, it would be impossible for someone to remember exactly where they were or how many steps they took at a scene, right?
I believe she was referring to people walking through the scene. Is that?
You would agree with me that doing a walkthrough of a scene, it would be impossible to remember exactly where you were and how many steps you took, right?
Oh, yes.
No human being could do that accurately, at least to any degree like you utilize in a lab, right?
That's correct.
You wouldn't find that type of information reliable in your analysis.
What type of information?
Someone trying to recall exactly how many steps they took. Or
Oh, no. That wouldn't. None of that would affect my analysis.
Okay. Because it's not reliable.
It's not really relevant to what I'm doing.
Okay.
I just assume that the detectives and the crime scene investigators document where everything was and if anybody kicked a cartridge case. I mean, that's out of my realm.
Okay. And as it relates to your analysis of the cartridge cases recovered, you would agree with me that without knowing all of those variables, how many people were there, what surfaces exist, the angle that the gun was held, the positioning of the hands on the gun at the time it was fired, without knowing all of those things, you can't accurately say where a case would end up, right?
No, I cannot.
Nothing further.
Nothing else.
Ladies and gentlemen, the jury, have any questions for this witness? If you can write your question on a full sheet of paper with your name and your juror number, the counsel approach.
Sounds like we have more questions. And they've approached. I'll turn down the volume a little bit here. All right. Oh, they were ready with these questions. They were already written. It was quick. And just like that, on cue, we have Mr. What do they call it? Who's the guy who keeps falling asleep all the time in mythology?
If the shooter was in the doorway, would the wall leave a mark where the case hit?
No.
I was asked that question in the pretrial, and if it's a small hallway and it's drywall, they come out at a pretty good velocity. I would expect maybe a little dent in the drywall.
Wow.
Where they're hitting. I don't know what the wall was at the crime scene.
Rip Van Winkle.
In the laboratory, it's a steel wall, so they definitely don't make any marks there. But they come out at quite a, well, just look at the distance that they travel. They probably would have gone a lot further if they wouldn't hit the wall. So they're still moving pretty fast when they hit the wall.
State, any follow-up based on the jury question?
Yes.
Yep. Mr. Stumter?
If we're being accurate, you don't know the answer to that question, right?
I have not done an experiment with it, no.
Because it could depend on what the doorway is made out of, right?
That's correct.
Could depend the surface covering the doorway, right?
That's correct.
The type of paint could impact whether or not a mark's left behind.
That's correct.
Shell case wouldn't leave a mark on a hard floor, right?
No.
Wouldn't leave a mark if I kicked it with my shoe, right?
No.
In fact, it would be purely speculation for you to say whether or not in this case there would be a mark left behind, right?
I said I would assume from my experience that it might make a mark, but I can't say definitely that would make a mark. It would just depend on the surface.
Yep. So bringing it back to my question, you would just have to speculate about whether.
I would just have to speculate without actually experimenting on a situation like that, holding a gun this far from a wall and see if it makes marks. Never done that.
Thank you. Nothing further.
follow-up statement?
And so your answer is based on, look, when they're ejected, they're moving fast, there's a lot of force in the ejection.
Yes.
If the hallway is fairly narrow, would it be more likely that it would leave a mark rather than a really wide hallway?
It would be a slower velocity the further it traveled. So if you're right up against the wall, it's going to hit it pretty hard. If you're on the other side of the hallway, it might not hit it quite as hard. But like I said, I've never actually tried an experiment like that, so I can't say
Sure.
definitely.
Sure. But the higher velocity would mean more force.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any follow-up on that?
Mayor, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, does the jury have any further questions for this witness? Okay, seeing no response, sir, your
Thank you, Your Honor.
testimony here today. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, we are going to take our lunch recess. During this recess, you must not discuss or communicate with anyone, including fellow jurors, in any way regarding this case or its merits, either by voice, phone, email, text, internet, or other means of communication or social media. You must not read, watch, listen to news or media accounts or commentary about this case. You must not do any research, such as consulting dictionary, using the internet, or using reference materials. You must not make any investigation, test the theory of the case, recreate an aspect of the case, or in any other way investigate or learn about the case on your own. And you must not form or express any opinion regarding this case unless biased submitted to you. Ladies and gentlemen, 12 o'clock will be in recess till 1:15. All rise for the jury.
The judge is ready for lunch. She never speaks faster as when she's headed out to get some food. I don't think the jury understood that, but I think the jury understood the testimony about the firearms. Darcy, really sorry that you're not doing well. I'm sorry to hear that. Hope you get feeling better soon. That is no fun. No bueno. No good. Can we go to the house and do a test? Mary, I would be very, very surprised, even with drywall, if a shell casing left a mark on the drywall. And I base that on the fact that I've stood in a position where I've been hit by ejected shell casings close to a firearm, where you're basically standing shoulder to shoulder with other shooters, and we're firing, and shell casings are moving down the line. They're landing in your neck, in your shirt, things like that. Probably not the safest environment for shooting, but
I just need a laptop. I won't change it.
Anyway, I think they're about done here. So we're gonna go here and there. Not even with flesh wounds. No, it will burn. The heat from the shell casing is hot, but it's not hot enough to, like, if it were to hit a piece of paper, it's not hard enough to scorch the paper. The contact is not, even if it were to touch and immediately keep contact with the paper, it's still not hot enough to make it smolder or change color or anything. They're just hot to the touch. It could hurt the skin a little bit, but that's about it. Gotta love a hot mic. Darcy, we do hope you're feeling better. Wiggle Styles, thank you for wishing Darcy good health. Didn't they just start less than an hour ago and now we have lunch? Wiggle, that's just how it works, unfortunately. They take these little short days and a break in the middle. Let's see. I wonder why Tommy went a different direction regarding the ponytails. I think he was asked to cut his hair, and he did. Is drywall the same as plasterboard? Yes, drywall is normally if you break it open, it's like a chalky type substance in the center, and then it has paper coatings on both sides. And it's available in various thicknesses from about, I don't know, the thinnest would be like, I think, 1/4 inch or 3/8 all the way up to 3/4 inch or so. Very heavy. We put it up in the Airbnb, and we used 4-foot width by 12-foot lengths of drywall to do all the walls and everything. And that's what you cover the framing with, the wood framing. Judge gets hangry if she doesn't get her snack or meal break. Yeah, she's not going to be kept from food at lunchtime. Was anything televised with DB the other day? GSD Mom, we did not cover that. I know it was coming up, and I think he said he wants to be his own representative or his own lawyer, do the whole pro se thing, but I haven't seen how that went. A live firearms demo in the Airbnb for science at Greeners. No, we won't do that. Let's see, Lena telling a story here. I have to back up and see the first part. I missed the first part. I can guess what happened. Will you consider the Karen Reed trial if this gets to trial? I'd like, very British. Karen Reed is that's the police officer death, and this is the wife of a police officer. She's accused of killing him by running him over and leaving him to die, I believe, in the yard. The evidence seems to be his injuries are not consistent with being hit by a car, and I'm intrigued by the fact that that discovery is not being released to Karen Reed's lawyers. So there's these huge delays, and video that should be available is not available for the time that it would be exculpatory. It's mysteriously missing, and I would very much be interested. I don't think it'll go to trial, though. I don't think it will. I think it will just be swept under the rug. Let's see. Will we be there in person for KR at least some of the days? For Karen Reed, Shells, that'll be awesome. If you're going to be there in person, I'd love to follow that trial. Keep me appraised on the dates, especially if they move, so we can keep that up to date. What time will they be coming back? They're coming back normally in about an hour and 15 minutes. So they have about an hour and 10 minutes. We're going to drop off for today and pick this up in the morning. I'm going to record this. I'm going to have my own copy because I'm not going to have what happened this morning happen again. As much as I love having Brandy virtually with us, thanks for so much to Brandy for letting us use her live stream from yesterday to keep up to date. But I'm going to keep recording this, but I will not be live. And let's see, can you give an update on the Sarah Boone trial and if you are going? Wiggle Styles, update is October 2nd is the date I think that's currently they have slated for her trial. I'm going to have to look because we're getting close to BK, and BK is the one I really want to go to. But we've got some more paperwork to do. Still don't have the permission from the Florida courts to get the access I need. So we'll see what happens. Let's see. Yes, download this afternoon to be safe. We'll do that. And do your sound bites homework. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to that today. How do we get to Brandy's page? Nikki, here's what I'm going to do. We have set up right now a portal. Open up to Brandy's page. What happens is the very second the live stream stops, like the last frame of this live stream, when my logo is on the screen and the feed stops, that's when it will portal you over. So you have to wait for that. Don't get all anxious and just try to navigate yourself there. Although that is possible. You can do it if you know your way. But it's like this is the proven method that works. There'll be a little pop-up on your screen saying, hey, the portal is opening now. Click here to go. And then you'll get moved over. So we're going to do that. We're going to teleport en masse. It's always fun when we all arrive at the same time. But we'll be over there here in just a second. So let's do this. Let me wrap up with our music. And do me just one big favor. We've talked to Brandy a little bit online as well, but when you go in there, please just click the like button first of all. We owe her that. She was a huge help for us today. She was very gracious in letting us help that. She was hilarious in chat as well as on the video. I just owe her a big thank you. And so let's do that. But we will be back tomorrow, and we will follow this like from now on in this video. So we're going to catch up, and then we'll be back live tomorrow afternoon as they begin their morning. It's just how we do this court case. It'll work great. Is it better for you or Brandy for us to be beamed over than to find her and join separately? Bavarian Moon, I don't know if there's a difference. YouTube doesn't give out those. I mean, it possibly might be better for her ranking on the search algorithm if you were to search Brandy and then find the right link and click on it, but it's negligible. I think you just going over is better because it's more of us will make the jump. Because honestly, some of us pull up the search thing and YouTube says, hey, watch this. And we're like, hey, that looks interesting, and we get sidetracked. So it's probably better if we just make the jump. Anyway, thanks for sweeping the floor, Britta. Look for those extra shell casings. They could go anywhere, but usually they're back to the right. You want to look for that. Beam us up, Scotty. I'll do that, Alicia. Tonight when you go home, please hug the people you love. Smile at someone, make their day just a little bit better. And please stay safe till we go live again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Until then, let's go give Brandy a big old hug and lick the like button. Let's do that. Let's get our DNA all over that. We'll see you guys. Have a good night. Trial's opening, guys. You ready? Everybody hold your breath.
I object.
There we go.
Scratch all that. Oh, that was terrible.